I want to say thank you. Thank you to all you guys who are joining us today. We've had a couple of the Community of Practice webinars. Our Community of Practice, for you guys who are joining us, is our current and former Battleground to Breaking Ground participants and graduates. So they've been with our program, so we want to keep them engaged, and we feel like the best folks to share the knowledge and their experiences are the ones who've been through it, and we want to continue to support them and build programs for them. So we are excited to have them join us and to continue to support them. And you guys, for my participants and grads, we'll be continuing to post into your groups and just asking you what topics you want to see. We're kind of just using this to guide the curriculum and the additional education that you guys think you need, because we all know that as we grow in our businesses on our farms and ranches, nothing ever stays the same. And we might have taught you, or you might have heard it in the program years ago, but now you actually need a farm loan, or you need some of that disaster assistance or those kinds of things. And so we want to make sure that we continue to help get those questions answered for you as we go along. So we will be recording this presentation. After it's over, we'll send you a little pre-post kind of knowledge gain survey thing. And once you answer that, we'll go ahead and put in the trigger. It'll send you an email confirmation. We've got your survey, and then there we'll put the link to the presentation and the recording so you guys can watch it whenever you're ready, if you need to go back and listen to it. So we've got a couple of folks with us. And this is kind of how we're going to go through today. So first, we'll go a little bit over the Battleground program. Like I said, you guys have been through it for the most part. I won't spend much time on what you've already done, but we'll talk about some of the new parts that we've added to continue to support you guys. And then we'll have our USDA talk about getting your farm loan, or sorry, your farm service agency number, and how to do that and what that does for you. I'll talk a little bit about our ag and timber exemptions and how to do that and what applies there. And then Dr. Bennett's going to wrap us up with the county ag exemptions or valuation, and we'll talk about that for your lands. So Battleground, like I said, you guys have been with us quite a while. So we do offer that online training and in person. We have those hands-on learning events that are still going on across the state. So if you still want to attend those hands-on learnings, we'd love to have you just join our events calendar as usual. Our online courses, we still have our phase 1, 2, 3. We'll be adding phase 4 and our Skill Bridge program. So kind of be on the lookout for that. And then agribility services for you guys who either didn't need them at the time or just didn't think about it at the time. We continue to offer those services that if you have a chronic health condition or a disability or something, and I don't know any of us that don't hurt when we get up in the morning if you've been farming and ranching very long. So anything like that, anything that makes your farming and ranching harder, you can be an agribility client and continue to receive support and services through agribility. So there's a whole lot of information on here. This is actually a flyer. I've been trying to work with our graphics people to get this a little prettier, but you'll just stay tuned. It's new. So I think y'all are pretty familiar with the phase 1. So for a lot of you guys who've attended that phase 1 workshop with us in person, COVID, helped us to get it up online. When we couldn't see you guys in person, we did get it up online. So now that phase 1 course that includes business, a little bit of intro business planning, business ideas, all those funding resources, that's now online in a phase 1 course. So you guys are still welcome to take that. Same platform on the AgriLife Learn. We're going to be expanding phase 1 in this new project, and we're going to do a boot camp. So we've had some of those participants want to apply for phase 2, but they don't have much experience, so writing a business plan is hard for them. So we'll get a boot camp together so that they can get some of that experience, hands-on education, and help them be a little bit more successful in putting a business plan together. So that's in the works. We should get that launched this year, probably over this summer. Phase 2 and phase 3, we still have our traditional Battleground program. Something new that we're adding are skills training programs. So we do have the Battleground program now registered with the Department of Defense, the registered Skill Bridge program. So if you know any transitioning military members in that last 180 days of transition that want to do like a farm or ranch internship, they can participate in the Battleground program. We've condensed phase 2 and phase 3 together. So they'll do that over the 120 days, and then they'll spend about 3 or 4 days out on a farm or ranch each week. So that's pretty neat. So if you guys know anybody who's interested in that, we've got a couple. Our first cohort will start with those guys in August, so we're taking applications now.
Others before being arrested in 20.
And so,
delayed his trial.
Go ahead and mute your mics for me. Sorry, we're picking up some background noise. Thank you. And lastly, so it really applies to our graduates. So we've opened up a mentor training program. We're going to affectionately call it our phase 4. Apparently do not disturb doesn't work on my phone. So we will get your training program for your mentors up. And if you are wanting to continue with the Battleground program and you're interested in mentoring future participants, we have it's about a 12-week program to train our mentors, and it's about building mentor-mentee relationships, managing liability, conducting individual education plans, all of those kinds of things. Once you're a certified Battleground mentor, we can actually pay you to conduct those hands-on learning hours for phase 3 participants. So through a stipend that we have, which I think is pretty great. So we're excited about that. And additionally, with this new grant, our Battleground graduates, you guys can apply for an additional $1,000 through the FEC Fellowship Fund. We'll get that application out pretty quickly. So it just have to be a graduate, and you'll be able to apply, and it'll only be for Battleground graduates. So that pool of competition should be quite a bit smaller than the big FEC Fellowship Fund. So I'm excited about all those things. There'll be more information coming out about them. We do have a bunch of that on our website as well. But if you're interested in any of those programs, in that little survey we send you at the end, it'll have a button you can check for more information. We can send it to you. So with that, I'm gonna let our Farm Service Agency folks tell us about getting your farm number and what that looks like. Mr. Josh Coleman, and I think Scott Reed and Amy, Amy, I forgot your last name.
McCausland.
McCausland, there you go.
Yes,
I haven't got to work with you yet, Amy, I don't think. So I'm excited. So we will let you guys go ahead and get started, and I'll just slide through whenever you want to move forward. So I'm excited to let you guys go ahead.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having us this morning. My name is Amy McCausland. We've also got Joshua Coleman, our outreach specialist, and Scott Reed. He's our farm program chief. He's here also, but he's having a little bit of connection difficulties. So let's see if we go ahead and go on to the next slide. So just a little bit of basic information. There are over 2,100 county offices across the nation, with every county being serviced by a USDA service center. There are staff here that will help you with your questions and participation in USDA programs. And there's also a beginning farmer coordinator that has been identified for every state. And here in Texas, that is Joshua Coleman. He serves this role. The beginning farmer coordinators, they're a great resource in sharing helpful information and guidance for working with USDA agencies as a beginning farmer. So if you've not been to your local service center before, please, I encourage you just to give them a call, schedule an appointment, and you can visit with them about, many opportunities that may be available to you. And whenever you do visit your local office, you can talk with FSA and NRCS staff about programs that may be of particular interest to you and what you need to do to get started. Let's see if we could switch on over to the next one. So a few things to know prior to your first visit and what you should be expected to provide. First, proof of identity, your driver's license, social security number, tax ID number, also a recorded deed, survey plat, or a rental or lease agreement. And just please keep in mind that you do not have to own property to participate in FSA programs. For entities, we would need articles of incorporation, trust and estate documents, or maybe a partnership agreement. So just, having these items with you for on your first visit, it will really help ensure a smooth and quicker process for you. See if we go on to the next one. So once we get all of your basic documentation that we just mentioned, we can begin. Really, the first step is establishing your farm number. We'll use all your documents, your deeds, any maps that you may have, and we'll create a map with farm and ranch boundaries, acreage figures. And again, having that farm number really is the first step in gaining access to USDA programs. And you'll also be able to vote in FSA County Committee elections and receive routine program notifications. We'll go on to the next one, please. Thank you. So just a couple of notes on heirs property. Heirs property is land that's been passed down, from one generation to the next, maybe without a will or any other documentation that provides for ownership. So to be added as an operator on heirs property, there's a couple of different documents that you can provide. First, a court order, just verifying that the land meets the definition of heirs property as defined by the Uniform Partition of Heirs Property Act. Or we can take a certification, from the local recorder of deeds that the recorded owner of the land is deceased and at least one of the heirs has initiated a procedure to retitle the land. So, and operators of heirs property who maybe can't provide either of these two documents, there's a couple of other options available. Let's see over on the next slide. So if you can't provide those other two documents, any of these will also work. A tenancy in common agreement approved by a majority of the owners, tax returns for the previous 5 years showing that the individual has an undivided interest, farming interest, even a self-certification that the individual has control of the land for purposes of operating a farm or ranch. And then, there are other acceptable forms of documentation that we can take. If you are an operator of heirs property, just work with your local FSA staff on what documentation you can provide, because usually each types of these situations are a little bit different. So just work with your local FSA staff and they can help you. And if they have any questions, they can, reach out to us for further information. Let's see, over on to the next one. So from here, I'm going to turn it over to Joshua. He's going to go through a few basic, FSA farm program options. Let's see,
Thanks so much, Amy. Thanks so much, Amy.
So
FSA has two major categories of offerings. We have working capital and disaster assistance, also known as our farm loan programs and our farm programs. So FSA has a variety of farm loan programs to meet different types of needs, whether it be for an improvement project, expanding an enterprise, getting started, or purchasing a farm. So our farm programs has disaster programs for all types of producers and can help producers recover during natural disasters or when there are serious economic disruptions. Farm programs also has programs to offset the cost of organic certification and has low interest loans for commodity storage of all types, from fluid milk to produce. Next slide. So each year, USDA agencies collect data relating to crops through crop acreage reports. So if you want to participate in many USDA programs, including crop insurance, safety net, conservation, and disaster programs, you must timely file acreage reports to remain eligible for program benefits. Generally, spring planted crops must be reported by May 15th or July 15th each year, depending on your location in the state. Grasses must be reported by July 15th of each year, and fall planted crops must be reported by January the 15th or February 15th each year, again, depending on your location in the state. And you can file your crop acreage reports by filling out the FSA 578 form. Your local USDA Service Center staff can help you by providing you with maps and deadlines to help simplify the reporting process. And again, for doing acreage reporting, you would need a farm number. Next slide. So USDA offers a variety of programs to help farmers, ranchers, communities, and businesses that have been impacted by natural disaster events. Our non-insured crop disaster assistance program, also known as NAP, covers crops that are not insurable through a typical insurance agent. There's an administrative fee of $325, but that fee can be waived for beginning, social disadvantaged, limited resource producers, and eligible veterans. The Emergency Assistance for Livestock, Honeybees, and Farm-Raised Fish Program, also known as ELAP, can be used by livestock producers and provides assistance for grazing losses on non-federal land, additional costs in transporting water to livestock due to drought, losses resulting from the additional costs associated with gathering livestock for treatment and inspection related to cattle tick fever. We also offer the Livestock Indemnity Program, which is also known as LIP. This program provides benefits to eligible livestock owners or contract growers for eligible losses, including eligible adverse weather, eligible disease, and eligible attacks. The Livestock Forage Disaster Program, also known as LFP, provides payments to eligible livestock owners and contract growers who have covered livestock and who are also producers of grazed forage crop acreage that have suffered a loss of grazed forage due to a qualifying drought during the normal grazing period for the county. LFP also provides payments to eligible livestock owners or contract growers that have covered livestock and who are also producers of grazed forage crop acreage on range land managed by a federal agency if the eligible livestock producer is prohibited by the federal agency from grazing the normal permitted livestock on the managed range land due to a qualifying fire. Another program we have that is not a disaster program is the Farm Storage Facility Loan Program. This program can help producers by providing low interest financing to assist with the purchase and construction of crop storage. So examples may be for hay, fluid milk, or types of produce. And for this program, the applicant must be the person producing the eligible commodity. Next slide. So producers, owners, and others that are interested in keeping up to date with important FSA and NRCS program deadlines and information are strongly encouraged to sign up for GovDelivery. This instant communication system allows newsletters, deadline reminders, and bulletins to be sent right to your email address. Producers can sign up online at farmers.gov/subscribe for email communications. Producers can also text their 2-letter state abbreviation and full county name to 372-669 to sign up for text alerts. So for example, Brazos or San Saba County producers could text TX Brazos or TX San Saba, all one word, to 372-669 to sign up for those text message alerts. Next slide. So if you all do have any questions about any of these programs, you can reach out to me. Again, the State Outreach Coordinator and Beginning Farm and Rancher Coordinator, either by email at joshua.coleman@usda.gov, or you can give me a call at 979-680-5252. You can also visit with your local FSA staff, and they can also assist you with any questions that you may have. If you're not sure where your local service center is, you can find it online at farmers.gov/service-locator. And that will do it for us, Erin.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Thank you, guys. Do you guys have any questions? We have just a couple minutes. You can either type them in the chat box or you can unmute your mic. And we'll take
Erin, one thing I will drop in the chat box, it is a fact sheet that we do have. It's the first visit fact sheet. I haven't shared it with you yet, but it'll be linked here in the chat, and I'll also send you a copy of it. But this fact sheet, it goes through the information that producers would need to provide to our office, again, just to get a farm number established, and then also some of the information that they'll need to provide if they'll be participating in any of our programs. So I'll drop that link in the chat so everyone can take a look at it as they get a chance.
That's great. I think that'll be really helpful. I know sometimes it's kind of intimidating to walk in and to you guys if they don't know what they're looking for. So, and I would encourage you guys to make sure that you contact the office before you just stop by. I know some of your offices are still out and about, and you still do farm visits and those kinds of things. So just make sure that you guys contact them and schedule an appointment if you want to stop by your office. All right, so we will go on to our next piece. So we're going to talk a little bit about our ag and timber exemption. So this, I think, is a little bit confusing for folks. I get the question often, is where can I find more information about my ag exemption? And so my first question is usually, well, are you talking about your ag valuation for your property, or are you talking about your ag exemption for like buying stuff? And most folks don't know, that there's a difference. So what we're talking about here is this is your ag and timber exemption, which removes some of the taxes, the sales taxes on things that you purchase for your farm or ranch. So what it is and who qualifies. So that a tax exemption applies to certain items used for ag and timber. I think that's probably the big key to pay attention to. It's for your agriculture or timber, right? So it's not just to build your barn dominium. So we have to kind of pay attention to those things. But engage in qualifying activities, I think, is really the key on this. So the activities that qualify: farming or ranching for the purpose of raising agriculture products for sale. So if you're just raising pet cows, that's not going to qualify you for your agriculture exemption for your sales taxes. So it's for the production of fiber crops, applies to timber production, feedlot operations, commercial fish farm operations, beekeeping, custom harvesting. If you're doing a commercial nursery. These were ones actually I didn't know until I was putting this slide together, is a veterinary business that makes farm and ranch calls, and our 4-H and FFA kids, so, and their livestock projects. So I thought that was really neat. And agriculture teachers for agriculture vocation courses. So those are the activities that qualify. I want you guys to kind of pay attention here. What is not included that a lot of you guys raise? I'll let you put it in the chat box. Make sure you're still paying attention. It's 4 legs, eats a lot of grass, but it doesn't, it's considered recreation for a lot of folks. Anybody know? There we go, Janae. We've had this conversation, I'm sure. So horses. So our horses aren't on here, actually qualify for your ag and timber exemption. But what's neat is they qualify actually for another exemption. So you don't need your ag and timber card for your horse operations. There's actually a different exemption. So just wanted to point that out there. I know lots of folks get confused on the horse thing. So how you apply is a little bit different. So we actually apply for through the Texas Comptroller. So that doesn't have anything to do with your county office, and Blake will explain the difference, I'm sure, in a minute. So there's this site, you just apply online. It's a really easy process. It might take you about 10 minutes if you have all the information. Something to note is that card is going to expire every 4 years. So make sure that you are on top of that, and it expires 4 years. It's like on a rolling basis. So even if you get it this year, I think they expire December 31st of 2023. They still all expire December 21st of 2023. So you're going to have to reapply, even if you've only had it a year. So that it's going to be good for 4 years, but it's on a rolling basis. It expires every 4 years from whenever they set that 4 year. And so the next one coming up will be 2023. So like I said, it's not, you just reapply. It's not a hard process. But some of the basic information that you're going to need is you'll need business name, description. You'll need your social security number and any of your business information. Like if you have an LLC and you have your SOS file number, you'll need to include that on your application when you apply for your ag and timber exemption, and they give you a card and a letter. Moria, I just saw your question. You reapply for your ag and timber exemption. I want to say it usually comes out in like October. It comes out typically a couple months before they expire, and it just tells you like, hey, you're going to have to reapply. They usually send it to, when you create your account, whatever email you put in there. So we just make sure that's current. And on your card, it also has an expiration date. So it'll tell you when those expire. So you just get back on, there's a little reapply link, you click on it, and then you just reapply. So things to note, not all purchases are exempt from that sales tax. Some items are exempt. when they're used for ag and timber, and some just have a standard sales tax exemption. So I'm sure you guys buy a lot of feed, seed, those kinds of things from our feed stores. If you notice, if you buy feed, a lot of times it doesn't have sales tax anyway. So you don't technically need your ag and timber exemption to buy feed without taxes. It just has a standard exemption that there are no taxes on it. So I think that's pretty neat. But then there's some other things that do need that ag and timber exemption specifically. So your farm and timber machines, trailers, semi-trailers, they're primarily used for farming and ranching, do qualify for exemption from a motor vehicle tax, which is helpful. So if you have some of those farm and timber machines, tractors are usually an example, trailers, that you can be exempt from that motor vehicle tax. So you will need, when you go to your motor vehicle office, there's a special form, and you will also need your ag and timber card to verify that you have your ag and timber exemption. So just a few clarifying things. I think there is a form that you typically fill out for retailers. So we use Tractor Supply. We use ours with Tractor Supply. There's a couple of benefits, I think, of actually setting up an account with your common retailers. You can, for a lot of the bigger guys, you can just set up an account. They'll go ahead and take your card and your card information, and you fill out a form that goes along with your ag, that's your ag and timber exemption certificate form for that retailer, and they can keep it on file for you. Mine are really good about letting me know when they're going to expire and letting us know, hey, you know, you're going to have to update these. If you don't have your card on you, there's a little retailer lookup, or you can even look up your card and your information on that Secretary of State, the Comptroller site, and you can just look up your number and give that to your retailers, or they can look it up. Sometimes if I forget mine are nice to me, they'll look it up for me. But and then a lot of those retailers are able to give you a summary of the things that you purchased with that on your account, on your ag and timber exemption, and give you a summary of that at the end of the year, which I think is really helpful. On that form, they also list a lot of the common things that qualify for that, the ag and timber exemption. So I think that's really helpful for you, and I'd encourage you to take a look at it. And if you have any questions, their site is actually really good. I think there's a lot of things on there that can qualify, that don't qualify, and you can look through their FAQ sheet and look at those. This doesn't apply. Some folks have asked, like, does that apply for like your farm diesel and those kinds of things? This doesn't specifically apply to those. There's a different form that you fill out for your actual, like your farm diesel, your red dye diesel. So, and I learned it through here as well, that if you purchase gasoline, gas doesn't actually doesn't qualify for this exemption specifically, but there is a form that you can get a refund on some of those gasoline taxes if you've used that gasoline specifically for some of those farm and ranch vehicles. So it's pretty cool, I think. I think, and it doesn't completely exempt you from taxes. Like some people get farm plates for their pickup trucks. This doesn't exempt you from the taxes that you would pay on the sale or purchase of your pickup trucks. So just something to kind of note on that, there's a process for getting your farm and ranch plates, but this exemption is not going to get you completely exempt from those taxes for your pickups. So just to note, I think those are kind of the common ones. So do you guys have any questions? I know that's kind of fast. We could probably do all day on each of these topics, but we're kind of doing a breeze through, and then we can always follow up with questions. All right. Well, the last thing I'm going to say on it, like I said, is just make sure that we're using our ag and timber exemptions responsibly. If you guys have been doing farm and ranching for a while, you know that we didn't used to have to carry around a card and get it updated every couple of years and all of that process. And we do now. And so we want to be really responsible with that so they don't take those awesome benefits away from us and make us do it either every year or just take it away at all. So let's be responsible with it, make sure that we know when those exemptions apply and when they don't, and how to use that responsibly. That's right. Yes. Yep. Maury, trailer purchases. Yes.
And hey, could I follow up with a question?
But yeah, go ahead.
All right. I've got the timber exemption. I don't know what the requirement though is to maintain that. I mean, I'm not actively selling trees, although I have trees and I want to move in that direction, but where can I find the requirement for maintaining the timber exemption?
So is that a property? Is it on your property or are you talking about your sales taxes?
I'm talking about, I guess I'm talking about the property.
Okay. Yeah. So this one specifically, this ag and timber exemption specifically applies to your sales tax.
Roger. Okay, I got that.
But then Blake is he'll be able to answer this. That is such a in-depth process. And so, yeah, we'll hand it over to the expert real fast. And
okay,
let him
I'll stand by. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Maury. All right. Let me stop sharing my screen real fast. And then I am going to hand it over to you, Dr. Bennett. You can take those on. Let's see. Stop sharing. There we go.
There you go. All right. So you ready for me to take off?
Yes, sir. You can take off of that.
All right. I'm going to get my pacifier up here. Can everybody see that? Should say Texas Ag exemption on there on this first slide.
Yes, sir. We can see it.
Perfect. Sounds good. All right. Good job at handling the sales tax end of it. I know that whenever you start talking about ag exemption, there is confusion whether it's property taxes or the sales taxes. You did a great job covering the sales tax end. Now I get the job of covering the property taxes, which normally can take 2 hours, but I think we have 10 or 15 minutes. So I will breeze through this so that we can get to some of the questions. If you've got any after, that are really in depth, we may have to continue it after the meeting. But this one, we're covering the property tax end of it in the ag exemption, what everybody calls the ag exemption that is offered for your property taxes. Anytime you buy new land, you will be you'll be required by the Central Appraisal District to update your name and information for that land. And they may ask you to resubmit an application for a qualified ag production to have your property taxes lowered. They can also, the Central Appraisal District could also require that current landowners refile an application. I know that the Central Appraisal Districts in and around the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex area, they take random samples and they have about a third of all landowners refile every year. So this is something that does come up from time to time that is very important because the ag exemption can result in significantly lower property taxes on property. Get right into it. We call it the ag exemption, and actually it's a slang term that's used. What we're actually trying to define is we're trying to explain the value that the Central Appraisal District gives land. Agricultural land that is valued at its agricultural use or deemed agricultural use, it's not valued at market value, it's at its productivity value. So the market value may be $10,000 or $15,000 or even higher an acre, but the agricultural value is how productive can that be? And that could be, the value there could be somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe $100 per acre. So that is why the property taxes are so much lower if land gets that agricultural use designation by the Central Appraisal District. Generally, this becomes a focus after land is purchased. You know, I've purchased land. Now, what can I do to keep my ag exemption? That's kind of like putting the cart before the horse. Hopefully, you know, you've made the decision on this is what I want to do. Now I go find land that meets those needs. But either way that it goes, Extension, Texas AgriLife Extension has experience working with both situations where you're not really for sure, or you have a plan already in place in the land that you purchased, it meets those goals. I'd like to go into how you qualify for agricultural use. But before we do, there's a misnomer out there that, oh, don't worry, if you've got some land, just put a couple of cows out there, you'll be okay. That may or may not be the case. And I think you'll see real quick why this statement is one that it's kind of misleading that's out there in the world of agriculture. Now, the Central Appraisal District, whenever they're looking at land, they have 6 guidelines to go by. They have 6 things, 6 check boxes, yes or no. Either it meets it or it does not, whenever they're determining whether it's agricultural use or not. The first is they're only looking at the dirt itself. They're not looking at any of the structures. They're looking at only the land. Only the land qualifies for agricultural use. Now, yes, that can include the fences and ponds and roads, but they're really looking at the dirt. Anything else will be valued at market. And I've got a picture here that shows a tractor that's putting up hay underneath a barn. Now, the dirt underneath that barn, it is agricultural use, because that hay will either be stored for use later or for sale. The barn itself, that would be valued at market because it's an improvement. So one of the misconceptions is that the land and the structures, they have a decreased value. Not the case. The structures themselves, they're valued at market, but it's the dirt that qualifies for agricultural use. The next thing the Central Appraisal District's looking for is active agriculture has to be taking place. So picture on the left, if you say that you have cattle out there, well, your fences are down and they've been down for obviously some time. So I don't think that you have cattle. If you're saying you're raising crops, I don't think so either. It's pretty clear that there's no crops out on that property, the picture on the left. The picture on the right, on the other hand, brand new fence, have cattle behind it. Okay, yes, active agriculture is taking place. So that would be the second checkbox that the Central Appraisal District is looking for. The next one, the principal use of the land must be agriculture. You can see this picture, pretty nice little spread. If we owned everything in this picture right up to the tree line in the back, then okay, the principal use is probably agriculture. The fences back there tell me they're probably breeding horses. They're not pleasure horses, but they may be breeding horses, or possibly they're raising hay. So principal use, agriculture. However, if our property line was this small row of trees behind this small little shack right here in the foreground with the cement pond, as the Clampetts would call it, and we had a garden off to the right-hand side of the house. Well, the principal use there is your homestead. It's not agriculture. So again, this is the third issue that the Central Appraisal District's looking at. Yes or no, is the principal use agriculture, or no, it is not? This next one, this is where the central appraisal districts across the state, which each county has their own district, this is where they get some leeway, and they need to. The degree of intensity, that means how many livestock you have out there, or how you manage your pastures, or how you're planting your crops. The degree of intensity has to be what's generally accepted in the local area. This is where, oh, just put a couple of cows out there, you'll be okay. This is where this falls apart. If the central appraisal district drove by your property and they saw the picture on the left, a couple of cows, but your land could support the picture on the right, you've got a problem. And this is one where it's most confusing because each central appraisal district is different in how they handle this qualification. And it doesn't take long whenever you look at the size of the state of Texas to say they need to be able to handle these differently. Because what we see out in far west Texas, say in Van Horn, the number of cattle that the land can support out there is much different than it is, say, in Nacogdoches in the far eastern side of the state, because the rainfall is different, the grassland is different, the crops that can be supported are different. So this is one where if you have questions, it is so very important to go to the central appraisal district that handles the land where your county, the county where your land is located. Don't ask the neighboring central appraisal district what they think, because it can be completely different. This is up to the interpretation of the central appraisal district of that individual county. To give you an example of the differences that we can see between counties, between central appraisal districts, this is a picture of the district that I cover. It's Northeast Texas. And I'm going to focus on 5 counties. And these counties all touch each other. And another reason that I focus on them is because their central appraisal districts have the qualifications or what they're looking for regarding degree of intensity on their websites. So I could compare county by county how they're different. And just notice the differences from one county to the next just in livestock alone. Collin County, which is just north of Dallas, they require a minimum of 2 animal units on pasture land run throughout the majority of the year. Cook County, which is just along the Red River border to Oklahoma, they require a minimum of 10 acres or minimum of 10 animal units or 30 acres. So even those 2 counties drastically different in what they're saying that they want to see. Notice what Denton County says. Standard practices of pasture management is what they're looking at only. They don't talk about numbers. They don't talk about a minimum acreage there at all. It's just in how you manage that pasture that the livestock are on. Grayson County does talk about numbers, does talk about minimum acreage. Tarrant County, all they list is minimum acreage. So 5 counties that touch each other, that are very close, very similar in terms of their topography and what the land can support, they are very different from county to county in what they require. So I think hopefully this just hammers home, talk to the local central appraisal district whenever you have questions regarding your land and what qualifies. The last two check boxes that the central appraisal district's looking for is land has to be devoted to agriculture in 5 out of the last 7 years. If it's within the city limits, it has to be every year for the last 5 years. And you have to file a valid application on time, which applications are actually due at the end of April. So if you've gotten the notice that you need to file for the ag use by the central appraisal district, you have until the end of this month to get those applications in. These last 2, if you purchase land that's already in agriculture, then yes, the application will be due at the end of the month to change it over to your name. And if it's already in agriculture, continuing the practice that you have been engaged in the past, you're more than likely going to get to keep that ag use designation. Now, anytime I talk about this subject, I always have to bring out what happens if you do not continue agricultural use. Well, we've gotten a break in taxes for every year that land has been designated as agricultural use. If you decide to change that use, in other words, you're going to stop agriculture altogether, then a rollback tax will be implemented. And the way that the central appraisal, the way that the tax district, the way that they calculate the rollback taxes, they look at what you should have been paying in property taxes had your land been at market. They subtract off what you actually did pay in property taxes because it was in agricultural use. And they do that for the last 3 years. So these rollback taxes, yes, can become kind of expensive. It's one that the penalty is actually decreased over the years. It's not as harsh as it used to be, but still the difference in those property taxes for the last 3 years can get a little bit steep. That's just ensuring, yes, we want to make sure that we want to change use from agriculture. Some takeaways here: the appraisal districts, all of them are different. Make sure that you understand that. There's only 6 guidelines that appraisal districts are looking for whenever they're evaluating whether or not you qualify for agricultural use. The one that really is up in the air that is left to interpretation is the degree of intensity. The degree of intensity of your property has to match what's generally accepted in the area. Livestock, it can take more than just a couple of cows to qualify for agricultural use. Not all animals are equal either. If the central appraisal district is looking for 2 cows, it's going to be much different than if you're raising goats. Goats are smaller, they don't eat as much grass, so you're going to need more of them. My suggestion here is to get in touch with the Texas AgriLife Extension County Extension agent as well in the county where your land is. Get their input on numbers. As far as crops, the Central Appraisal District is going to look at typical production practices in the area and typical yields. Rollback taxes can be expensive. Make sure if you're going to remove land from agriculture that yes, you understand the rollback taxes will be there, and it can be very expensive. There are agencies to help you. AgriLife Extension is obviously one of them with our county extension agents in every single county. USDA, NRCS can help you. Farm Service Agency, we rely on them as well quite a bit, and great information that they provided earlier in the presentation. I know I went through this very, very fast. I'll open it up for any questions. I do list my contact information here. If you have any questions, be happy to answer those at any time. Please do keep my number handy, and I am here to help. Would be great to open it up to any type of questions that y'all may have.
Thank you, Dr. Bennett. All right, you guys. So I think we have one question in the chat box. So it's from Jeff. Says, if you need to reset your livestock and will involve letting your land rest a bit before putting livestock back on the property, how long do you have?
That's going to be up to each individual central appraisal district. I've questioned them specifically on this issue, and I've told them, you know, we have lease arrangements where someone comes in and just grazes everything off. All the grass is gone, and it can take 2 to 3 years for that pasture to come back. Are you going to give that grace period? And by far, the answers that I get are all the same. Yes, we understand it's going to take time. Please be in contact with us. Tell us what your plan is, how you're going to move forward. Right now, we're in the middle of a big drought here in Texas. The central appraisal districts know, yes, you're going to have to reduce numbers. You're going to have to reduce the number of livestock that you have on property. Some grass may be completely gone. It's going to take 2 or 3 years if we can get average rainfall before that property comes back. But the key here, stay in contact with them. Let them know your plan. If something happens, let's say this is a 2 or 3 year drought. Let them know I'm still trying to get this pasture back into shape so that I can put livestock out there. Be in contact with your county extension agent, because central appraisal districts rely on those county extension agents quite heavily to say, yeah, this is a normal practice. We're actually recommending this particular property do this plan. So having everyone on board will help. I'll also say, don't be afraid of your county, your central appraisal district. They are not the ones that tax you. All they do is put a value on the land, and they are there to generally help you. Don't try and snow them. Don't try and pull a fast one on them. They will catch it, and they've probably seen it. But if you're genuinely trying your best to do what's right, they're going to help you. And so just be open, be honest with them, shoot straight with them, tell them this is my plan. And then how do I get it done, and stay in contact with them all along the way.
That is great advice. And I have to say, I went to our county exemption one time, and I thought they were going to just be like, you know, I'm going to give me all your money. And I'm like, and so, but they were the nicest, most friendly. They gave me so many resources, and they were just really willing to help. And because they were more about education than anybody I think I've worked with as far as counties go. And so I really enjoyed meeting them. And like I said, they were really willing to help. And I know Mackenzie put in the chat box that she had a similar kind of interaction in their county. Remember, we talk about, you guys, a lot getting your conservation plans with NRCS, and as part of that sometimes is your grazing plan. I've known other participants who have had success with those recommended rest periods coming from their NRCS agents, because they're counties too. So and they can help you implement those grazing plans along with your AgriLife extension agent. So yeah, I love that. Having a good plan, right? We talk about planning a lot. I know you guys are probably tired of hearing me talk about planning, but yeah, as long as you're trying to do the right thing, I think that's when they get after you, is when you're trying to hide out there.
Yeah, I've heard stories where, the central appraisal district said that someone actually bought hay, trucked it in, rolled it out in the middle of the night, and then tried to say, this is what we cut. No, you didn't. I mean, they know that trick. Don't try and pull a fast one over on them, because then they will remember you. Yeah. Just like we remember names, they remember farms. They remember individual properties, and they remember characteristics of those properties. It's uncanny how well they know the county. And they will remember, maybe not your name, but they'll remember this property this is what happened this year. So I know that Mari asked about the timber requirements. Generally, they're going to probably want a plan in place. And most timber in this state, what we see is we have a clear cut, and then they come back and they sprig trees. 7 years after that, then we're generally seeing you're doing a thinning. So you're cutting out the trees that are just maybe misshaped, not straight. You're trying to let the ones that are growing straight grow big and tall. You have another cutting about 5 years after that, and then 2 years after, a final just clear cut, and you start all over. If it is in timber, generally we see managers that will manage that property for you for a percentage cut of the final income that comes in. Again, this is one, talk to your individual central appraisal district Each one of them are completely different whenever it comes to timber and what they require. If you're running your cattle on someone else's property, would it be wise to have a contract in place for their ag exemption? I think that if you're running your cattle on someone else's property, having a written lease agreement is essential for both sides. If you're farming someone else's property for row crops, it is essential that you have a written lease agreement. I have had, as you know, the real estate market's gone pretty crazy in Texas in the last couple of years, and building and expansion and growth is going wild, particularly where I'm at. And I've had 3 agricultural producers, full-time large producers, that had leased ground that the developer came in and said, "You're done this year, you're off, we're breaking ground in 2 weeks." And they have a wheat crop growing right now that they just got through fertilizing. And you know what fertilizer prices have done this year. You know what the diesel prices have done. And the first question I ask them are, do you have a lease agreement in place? No, we do not. Well, you're probably not going to be able to recoup any of those expenses. So anytime you lease ground from someone else, have it spelled out in a formal lease agreement what the expectations are, so that you know what is expected of you, they know what's expected of them, and everything's clean and clear, and you both agree on it. As far as the landowner, yes, they can claim and get their ag use designation by you putting cattle on their property. You as the cattle owner, you don't need any documentation coming your way from that, because you're not the ones paying the property taxes. The Central Appraisal District may require that a written lease agreement be presented to them for the landowner to get that ag use, because someone else is leasing the property. So, or they may ask that you call the Central Appraisal District and say, "Hey, we have cattle on this property." I still own some property, family land out in West Texas, and we have a written lease agreement. And also this past year, our leasee had to call down and, tell Amy at the Central Appraisal District, who he goes to church with every Sunday, "Yes, I'm renting the Bennett land out there. I've got a lease on it. Do you want the formal lease agreement?" She's like, "No, we don't need that, and I'll see you on Sunday." So the landowner's the one that needs to worry about those property taxes, not you as the one that owns the cattle.
That's a great point. And I would also encourage you guys, whether you're leasing land or you're leasing land to somebody, I think those maximum and minimum stocking rates are really good, because if somebody's trying to maintain their county exemption and the county has, a large number of animals on a small amount of land, and you don't have the rainfall, you're going to be the one who's feeding them if it says that you have to maintain a certain amount of animals on that property, right? So that's going to cut into your book. So just making sure you guys agree on those, what those rules are. So I would encourage you to talk to, if you're going to lease in that county, figure out what those stocking rates are, because what I know I've come across what the county thinks I can put on a piece of property and what my ag agent thinks on a piece of property aren't always the same thing. So, and that, again, it equals dollars, right? If I'm having to feed stuff, especially at prices when we're going into drought, they're high. So
Right.
make sure you guys put that, remember,
Yeah.
planning.
Exactly right. And those stocking rates, they do need to be flexible enough. As I said, there is a major drought that far West Texas is facing this year. And there is massive liquidation of herds of all livestock. And so a lease agreement, I wouldn't want to have a minimum number out there if we faced a massive drought. So, something that in the lease agreement I might want in there was, the recommendation, we will stock it with the recommended number that the county extension agent of X county or X county over, next to you recommends. So that way it's a defendable lease agreement, but it also allows for drought for years that we have a lot of rain. And you don't have to enforce it every year, but if you ever had to, you have a neutral third party that's making the recommendation.
Yes, I think it protects you both. So as a landowner, if your leasee is not maintaining it, then you have something to tell the county, like, this is what was agreed upon, it wasn't done, we're working to mitigate it. So I think those are good things to have. And I know on Tiffany, the agriculture law,
Yes.
agri-life law, they have a great grazing lease handbook in there for helping
Yes.
you develop leases and checklists on what to include if you don't have one, or you're getting one and you're like, I don't know that this has everything I think it needs to, or it might be a little not, drawn on a napkin. Maybe we need to encourage that a little bit.
A little bit more formal. And you brought up Tiffany Lashmet's her leasing workshop or leasing handbook. I'll also say, to protect yourself as a landowner, if you are leasing your property out for someone to graze cattle or any type of livestock, there probably needs to be some language in your lease agreement as far as who maintains the fences. Because if a gate is left open intentionally, if a fence is not checked and livestock get out, the landowner could be liable. Even if it's someone else that has leased the property, the landowner could actually be liable for any accident that happens with those livestock on a roadway. So have it in your lease agreement. The person that's leasing the property that has the livestock, they're responsible for maintaining the fences and keeping the gate shut at all times and locked with a chain.
That's good.
That gets away from the property tax, the property tax discussion. But hey, it's a fluid discussion, right? It all intertwines.
Absolutely, it does, because that's I think it's all tied together. Those aren't things I don't think you think about until you're actually doing it or you're in it, and somebody leaves the gate open, or somebody leaves, they might be on rural water and somebody forgets to cut off a trough. Like, who's responsible for the water bill? Those kinds of things. So.
That's exactly right. And it was standard practice whenever I was growing up. You would pull into the pasture, you'd leave the gate down, you'd start honking the horn, and the cattle would follow you to the corral. You put out either the hay or the cake or whatever it is that you're feeding, and then you drive out. You don't have to get out of the truck a bunch of times to open and close the gate. But if you have that one road cow that she doesn't know the drill and she doesn't follow the herd, and as soon as that gate's down and you pull away, she runs out, you intentionally allowed that cow to have access to leave the property. You formally gave leave, is the way that it says it in the law. And so if she gets out on a roadway and she gets hit and there's damage, you could be liable. You want to protect yourself if you're the landowner and someone else is leasing your property for livestock.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's part of our lease agreements that we maintain that insurance on our properties in case things like that happen, and the landowner has their own separate in case things like that happen, just in case.
Okay, and Mari just had another question. You filled a loss on your Schedule F for 3 years. When does the IRS require my farm to start making a profit before they collect rollback taxes? This is completely different. The IRS is going to handle income tax. The property taxes are handled at the county level. Think of it like the house that you own. You pay property taxes there. The land is going to pay property taxes as well, completely separate from your income tax. The official law, the rule on the books is, I believe, that farming has to make a profit 3 out of 5 years, or the IRS could label it a hobby farm. If that was the case, every single farmer in the United States would be a hobby farmer, because sometimes you don't make profit 3 out of 5 years. I've been told by the IRS themselves that what they look for is you're trying to make a profit. You're trying to do it. If you are, then you're probably not going to get the hobby farm designation. But the IRS could label you as a hobby farm and it would not affect the county and how they designate whether you're agricultural use or not. So those two are completely separate as well.
That's a good answer. And I've heard, I think actually at the Beef Cattle Short Course, they talked about the IRS also looks favorably on our farms and ranches when we have business plans. And you can show that you're actively working to implement business plans. Even if you weren't making a profit, you're still working towards, like Dr. Bennett said, making a profit. You're trying.
Right.
So.
You've got your goals, you've got your objectives, you've got your financial plan in place, and your goals and objectives are trying to make that profitable. You have your marketing plan, you know, you have your complete business plan in order, and I'm sorry, it's not working. Well, it's okay. It's all right. We understand you're trying.
Wonderful. Does anybody have any additional questions? They're all really good questions, and I know it's difficult to figure out what taxes and exemptions and what applies where. I know it's great. We need like a hand sheet, and even then it would be confusing. Even if we had like does it apply to this, and then it would apply to 10 different things with 10 different sets of rules as well. So I know it's a little bit hard to navigate, but we've got great folks like Dr. Bennett, like our FSA guys who can help you with those things, and just don't give up. The answers are out there, and like I said, most of those organizations are happy to help as long as you're trying and not hiding from them, right? For all my graduates, you know from working with us, like I will help you all day long, but if you hide from me, I'm going to be irritated with you. So we appreciate you guys. We appreciate our speakers and all that you guys do with us, and thank you for helping clear some of that up. And we can always do a follow-up webinar if you guys need some additional information and clarification. We'll do another poll here in a couple of weeks, probably, and ask what additional information you guys need, and then I'll share the results of our little survey with FSA, and Dr. Bennett will get those over to you. And I think if you guys don't have any other questions, I know we went a little bit long, but it was really good. So I think we'll let you guys go for the day. And like I said, I'll send you that link to a little, just probably like a little 5-question survey thing, and then once you fill that out, you'll get the recording for this webinar, so you can go back and review it. So if y'all don't have anything else, I'll let you go, and you guys have a great day. And like I said, I really appreciate you.